Hey, Trails Collective world, Ian here with the Trails Collective live episode. This will be originally airing March 30th, 2023. It'll be streaming live to my personal Facebook page as well as the Trails Collective's Facebook and YouTube channels. And it will also be available just as an audio podcast whenever I can get to it. I think last week I was able to do it the night of. Sometimes it takes me a week or so. But eventually it will be up there. So for those where you don't want to chew up bandwidth commuting, find it where your podcasts live. This is, let's see, coming to you from Ithaca, New York. It was a beautiful day out. Got out. Typically, I've been also doing just trail stuff for the past 20 years or so, but I had the, inspiration or thought to do Boston, maybe while I can still do Boston. So that's coming up in a few weeks. So I've been pretty much doing all road stuff the past 3 months or so, just for the Boston experience. Just really appreciating the history that Boston has in the running space and community, and just to experience it. So I'm surrounded by some of the newer trail models and updates that are coming in the shop here at the Finger Lakes Running Company, but I haven't really had a chance to do anything on trails. But it's kind of fun stuff that's arriving. So if you guys haven't checked it out, you can always touch base with me or let them know. This was the Salomon Glide Max Trail. It just came in, feels pretty good on my foot. A little worried about maybe some of the lamination here, that I'm getting a little bit of a pinch or a buckle, but it actually feels pretty good. The Hoka Tecton X2 also just arrived. I had it on my foot a little bit. It also feels really good as an update. There's a couple more down here as well along the lines from brands and some cool new stuff. So I'm excited to eventually get on the trails post Boston. It'll be a spin to try to have a go at another Manitou's Revenge. And then I'm signed up for the Beaverhead 100K out in Idaho, Montana in July. So I'm looking forward to getting back on the trails. And so hopefully spring is breaking where you are as well. And hopefully it finds you doing pretty well. So in this episode, we are going to start with and so for those who are tuning in live, it's always great to get questions or comments. If you have any, if there's anything that you want to ask any of the guests, or comment or heckle or whatever it might be, feel free to just throw it into the chat. I think most reliably, I get the chat messages coming in from YouTube. Facebook might be a little bit more unreliable. But if you're trying and I'm not responding or putting them up, either you just asked a terrible question and I'm just ignoring it, or I'm just not seeing it in the thread. So you can try either YouTube thread or Facebook, because it's great to have the live audience weigh in. So thanks for being on live. For those not familiar with the Trails Collective, I started it as an opportunity to just try to pull together various facets of a pretty amazing trail running community, whether it be event directors, giving a platform to particularly Northeastern and Eastern voices, nonprofits, trail organizations, shops. I just think it's a pretty amazing community. And there's a lot of people doing what I'm doing out there right now. I'm kind of late to that game. So I'm just a part of it. So hopefully you all have some pretty awesome podcasts that you listen to. But I felt that the Northeast, East and particularly Northeast trail world was given a little bit of shade, not getting quite some of the media and the spotlight that maybe it deserved. And so I set out to try to provide a platform to give a bit more, exposure or opportunity, I also felt like trail running for me was an opportunity and a platform that brings so many of us together, despite maybe any differences. I felt like our communities are becoming increasingly divisive, divided. And I just felt like trail running, at least for me, was something where a lot of that falls aside, that we can share the space, we can share the effort, share the pain cave miles. And I think that's a pretty beautiful and powerful thing. So if you've watched the Trails Collective, if you've shared any episodes, if you came on as a Patreon supporter, if you've sent us information, I appreciate it. You're what makes this possible at all. And so I really appreciate it. So this episode, I was hoping to go through some of the, as I've been saying the past couple weeks, keep trying to scout more of the FKT boards and some of the other results just to present you some of the other registrations that are about to go live or close out. But life, as it is for many of us, just keeps throwing curveballs here and there. And so today was no exception. So I am thankful that we have a full slate of guests, at least to chat with tonight. We're going to start with the Georgia Death Race in here in just a minute. We will have three wonderful individuals on, as well as after that, a couple other races. Rabid Raccoon, which wasn't really on my radar until I think this year. We'll dig into that coming out of PA, and we'll have a few guests and voices from that. And then the third set tonight will be digging into Spring Onto the Trails from a friend, Steve, and his Conquer the World endurance. And they had a timed endurance run that also went. So it'll be a pretty full episode. And for the first one, I'll weave in some of the guests here, and we'll just kind of get into it. Jana Fridrichova, it's great to have you on again. I think the last time that you joined us was maybe after the Barkley Fall Classic, which I think you're going back for a repeat of. I think it's in your lineup, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, it's in my lineup.
Good. All right. Tristan, thank you for joining us again. I know I had you on not too long ago. I forget what event it was. Maybe it was after No Business or something. I can't remember when you were on last.
I think it was the Greenbrier Ultras.
Oh, could have been. All right.
Last March, actually.
I was going to say that just happened too. I think this past weekend, right?
Yeah.
Wow, different weekend you had between Greenbrier and Georgia Death.
Yeah.
Just the sound of it. This little pleasant kind of Greenbrier with maybe a little bit of ivy, if I remember right on the logo, to the Georgia Death Race with the coffin. That's quite the turnaround. Nice work. So it's good to have you back. And Lee, good to have you back on as well. I know you were on also, I think, last year, Times of Blur. I can't remember what event it was after.
Oil Creek.
October. Right on. So it is good to have you all. And I was mentioning to at least Jana and Tristan before we got live here, I was hoping to have Sean on as well, the creator and director of Georgia Death Race with his Run Bum tours. Sean is a colorful individual, puts on some pretty amazing races, pretty tough, beautiful courses. So if you have not found some of the Run Bum races, for sure, check them out. I think that they are gems for sure on the East Coast, if not country, and they're pretty tough. And I know that there's a pretty good community with his events as well. But Sean, definitely a wild card of a character. And I think he's just cooked from the weekend. And so for those of you who don't put on your own races, you can imagine that it's just a pretty exhausting effort. I think for Sean, I think he got maybe like 3 hours of sleep, I think, on Thursday, and then didn't sleep, I think, Friday and Saturday nights. And so he is just fried and just needs some time to recuperate. So I totally appreciate that. It would have been great to have him on. I will try again to have him on as well, just because he's got a lot of stories under his belt. But it'll have to be the next round. So Jana, Trista, and Lee, thank you for being on here to represent and for story time. All right. So Lee, was this your first Georgia Death Race as well, or were you going back for redemption or something?
No, it was my first one.
Okay. All right. And then Tristan, this was your fourth or fifth?
Third. Number
three. All right. So with it being your third, how about give us the kind of the rundown, kind of location format, just kind of the 40,000 foot view of what the Georgia Death Race is all about.
I guess a lot of pain, maybe. Just it's a real front heavy race. I think a lot of hills in the beginning. It should be easy towards the end, but it's not, because you're kind of dead from the beginning. Yeah.
And distance is around 70. Is it around 74?
Yeah, around 74. Between 70 and 74. That's usually what I measure.
Yep. An elevation gain for the 74. I know that will probably be somewhat variable, and I think I've mapped it before. But what did you guys get?
I got around 15,000.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get into it, which is actually, we will get into it in here in a minute. But in terms of the 15,000 feet of gain, I feel like that's pretty par for the course. I feel like most 100-milers, at least in areas that are close to or within mountains, often are typically around 21,000 feet or so. So this one seems fairly par for the course in terms of elevation gain per mile. I know some of the photos that came out made it look fairly smooth in parts. I think, Tristan, some of the photos that you painted were just this beautiful grassy kind of single track where you're just kind of loping through, looking just beautiful in that moment. But I'm guessing it wasn't all sunshine and lollipops. I mean, there's some technical kind of terrain woven in there as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just the picture you saw is the only like little grassy part. There really wasn't a whole lot of grass.
That's going to be quite the bait and switch then. I mean, people are picking up on that strategic camera location. They're like, I'm going after that grassy single track course right there.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So, and then the where in Georgia? It's located where? Where's it run? And any of you can jump in on any of this.
From Blairsville to Amicalola.
So point-to-point format, and you guys on your own to bus there or get there, or is there a bus, or how's the point-to-point work?
I rode a shuttle bus, the school bus. I don't know about these other guys, but
yeah, I was on the shuttle bus, and actually the bus that was ahead of us caught on fire, so we had to take the guys from the bus to our bus. So that's how the race started for us. We were going up the mountain to get to the other side, and we see the smoke coming from the bus, like something's burning. And the bus just died, like right there in the middle of the road. It went black, no lights, no nothing. So we were like, get the people off the bus. And it was just crazy. But yeah, we were on the shuttle bus to get to the other side at like, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning.
So is this have you guys done some of the other Run Bum races before? Lee or Yana or Tristan, have you done some of his others?
I have not.
I've done Quest for the Crest.
Yep. So again, Sean, it would have been great to have him on here to dig in. I mean, the things that he's into, he's kind of all over the place. He's done a lot of these races on his own. He's tough to kind of pin down. He likes to skydive and do other things that are just very colorful things, but he often has stories and things that just happen. I think I can't remember if it was this race last year. I think it was like an accident, like post race, and like wrecked his trailer and his car. And there was something where there's just always these stories that I feel like just surround Sean. So in your experience then, Yana, I guess this kind of fits where the shuttle bus just kind of just gets torched like on the way to the start of the race.
It totally fits because Sean had it all like planned out, like when we meet in the shelter and he gives the speech and then Kevin sings the national anthem, and 2 buses showed up and 2 buses were missing. So they're all like, where are the buses? What happened? So we left the broken down bus in there. I mean, it was dark. They found some emergency triangles and set it up so it was safe to leave it there. We put all the people on our bus, but the bus was maxed out. Like, I don't think buses are meant for that weight. So we're going up the mountain to Vogel State Park, and we're going like 2 miles an hour, and everybody's like clapping for the bus to make it up the mountain. So then we made it to the other side, to the shelter, to the start line, and everything was okay. But it definitely is a story because I had some friends on the burning bus. But everybody made it just fine. And then as soon as we showed up at the shelter, it started pouring down rain, like just dumping rain. So it was truly like the death race beginning. It was awesome from the very beginning.
So that all right, to your point, maybe that bus wasn't really designed to necessarily get that amount of people, but then I get this image of other places around the world where you do see these buses that are just totally loaded, people hanging out the windows and sitting on top, and they're just going up these tight mountain passes or whatever. And there you had it in Georgia.
That was us. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And so Lee and Tristan, you were not on the bus that blew up.
No, I bought a bus ticket, and so did the other people that counted in our group from Pennsylvania. And then Patrick, our kind of head crew person, said, if you let me take you, you get 2 more hours of sleep, but you got to get your $30 bus ticket. That 2 hours of sleep was well worth the $30 bus ticket we ate. So we were fortunate we had somebody drive us to the start. So.
And all right, I think we just got right into it, but I was just about to make a comment and I was like, oh, wait, actually, I don't think I've even introduced you guys. And then I'll get back to what my comment was going to be there. So Jana's based, you're still in Hagerstown, Maryland?
Yeah.
And this was pulling a bit from how I introed you last time. I was run over 50 ultras, including 20 wins along the way. At least when I caught up with you last time, when I had seen you last was when you passed me like I was in a death mode standing still at Hellgate, and you were looking quite fresh. And I just remember, I think that's Jana. And I just think she looks like she just started like 2 miles ago. And I think I'm just going to sit down on this rock and cry for a while. And I'm just going to say good race because you look fresh as a daisy. So nice work. And so wicked tough. She was second overall this year at GDR in 15:37. She has at least on deck MMT, Manitous, and the Barkley Fall Classic, at least in the lineup. See how that shakes out. But it is awesome to have you. She's definitely a stud. Tristan Baxendale, Endicott, New York. You're still in Endicott, right, Tristan?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Third overall, second male in GDR in 16 hours. His race distances up to 200 miles. Handful of trophy finishes. MMT. The ring, no business, and rim to river run in 2022. This year so far has been the reverse ring and GDR, and then on deck Manitous and Jigger Johnson. And then Lee, firefighter coming to us from Muncie, PA, staple in the PA Mountain Trail community. He's raced Oil Creek in various distances, including 100 miles. And it is good to have you back on. And my comment was going to be it would have been fantastic to have you on that bus that blew up, given your firefighter background. Yeah. All right. So, and then so the appeal for you guys. I mean, and part of the color of Sean is just his kind of marketing persona, kind of the claims or these kind of bold statements about the races. Some of them end up being qualifiers, but it's like, this is the hardest race ever. Or this is the, whatever. And so it definitely sets this stage of, I think, a certain personality type or community that will go after these events. And the three of you are, I think, perfect examples of individuals that have taken on some pretty tough stuff. So I guess for Jana and Lee, what was the, I think, draw for you that turned you on to getting in the GDR lineup? And then Tristan, for you, there's a lot of races you could be doing out there. The reason to go back for a third round in no particular order. Somebody take it while I eat some food. Good.
So Ian can eat. So for me, it was different with the Georgia Death Race. Sean and I met 2 years ago at Quest for the Crest, and that's where I kind of got to know him. And that was a pretty hard race for me then. And I was just starting to get into these really mountain races. But this year, Sean and his team, they actually have a competitive team. It's Team Blue, Bend Don't Break, and I was selected to be on that team. So that means I got to choose a race to represent Ranbam Team Bend Don't Break. And of course, I'm going to choose the hardest thing he has, which was Georgia Death Race. So I just did Hellgate. So I had 2.5 months to train for this, and I wanted to do really well. And that's how I got hooked on this Georgia Death Race. And so I basically spent 2.5 months. I read the course, saw the hills, saw the elevation, and just kind of made up my training and showed up and had a good race.
And did it kind of live up to what you were, I guess, anticipating in doing your research or looking at profile or reading ports or whatever? Did it kind of match what you were expecting?
A friend of mine just asked me yesterday, is it really as hard as they make it to be? And I said, No, not if you really train for it. But I had a lot of friends out there that didn't make it or that had a really hard time. The weather made it really challenging. It was really hot and humid this year. So I'd say if you really train for it, it's achievable. It's, 16,000 feet of gain is a lot of hills for 74 miles. And they're kind of all in the first half, those really big ones. And then in the second half, it really opens up and it's really runnable. And I think that's where a lot of the guys that I caught up with struggled. They had no legs to really turn it over and run. So it's a physically really demanding challenge. Yeah. It's hard.
And Lee, how about for you? You didn't have necessarily the experience coming in with the connection with Sean or the races, or what put it on your radar and wanting to go after it?
I try to keep this a short story, but
you got time. If it goes long, that's fine.
So I started trail running in 2016 because my mom is from Renova. Where
2016. I say go long, but dude, that's like 7 years ago.
We're gonna fast forward real quick. So she begged me to do Heiner because that's where she's from. So I did Heiner, and I remember at the start of Heiner that year, Craig says about the Triple Crown of PA racing, and then he throws this Eastern States term out, and I didn't know what that was. So I remember asking somebody after the race, "What's this Eastern States?" They tell me it's a 100-miler. It just blows my mind. Like, I can't even comprehend that level of person. The next week, I start listening to Sean's podcast that they used to have, that East Coast Trail and Ultra podcast, and he starts talking about this Georgia Death Race. So I Google this Georgia Death Race thing, and I'm like, 75 miles? Like, that's still not even obtainable. Nobody can do that. And I remember thinking I would never be that level of person that would be able to complete something like this. And just ever since of hearing about that, it's just kind of been this fruit that I wanted to go obtain, and that's kind of what put that in my mind. These are the first two ultras that I heard about. And at that point, I thought it was the only two. It's taken a little while to get to this point, but that's where my desire to run, Georgia Death Race came from. It's a different area, than what I'm used to, although it's very similar, to North Central PA, I felt. That's where the plug got in for me.
And so I know some of Jana's history just because we've caught up before and I've been with her out there before and have been able to stalk her here and there for some of this stuff. For you, this was a big one. Taking on, I know you've done Oil Creek. We've talked about it in terms of the 100-mile distance. You for sure live in a pretty tough kind of Roxylvania area. But this was kind of a beast for you in terms of where you're coming from event metrics. And it was a jump.
Yeah, it was, it was, I don't want to call it my first mountain race, but it was, it was my first ultra long distance mountain race. It's definitely different than the ultras that I've done in the past. And I loved it. But I think those ultras really played into this race and helping me get ready for it because of, like Jana said, it was just so runnable at the end of it, even though I didn't was able to run as much as I wanted to, but I was still able to, slog some of those miles out in that ultra shuffle. So I do believe that, they kind of helped prepare me for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, yeah, well, that's cool. Well, that's awesome that you bit it off and then it went okay. And I think, at least in my experience, that is a different feel. 100 miles is 100 miles, whether it's a non-technical, whether it's a Pine Creek, kind of a flatter one or whatever. The breakdown for sure is real, especially in some cases, the flatter non-technical ones, you get even more breakdown. Maybe you go out a little bit harder than you should otherwise, and you're using pretty much the same muscle groups. I would imagine a course like GDR, you're getting more excuses or opportunities to like power hike, or you're keeping it more regulated for the later miles. But I still feel like it's kind of a different breakdown and a different hurt over a pretty burly course later in the game, even if it is runnable.
Yeah, and I think we were all kind of throttled back from the weather that morning. And, at the time that it had poured for, I don't know, 2.5 or 3 hours that morning. And I think everybody was just a little frustrated about how debilitating the mud was, at least where I was at the time. And in the beginning, I was floating around like the 100th position somewhere. And it was so muddy by the time those top, 90 to 100 people went through. You couldn't really even run down the hills because it was so slippery. And I look back, and after the rain, I couldn't have asked for a better day. I couldn't have asked for a better situation. But I think that rain really throttled some of us back and left us have some juice for the end of the race.
Yeah, we were, because we were all the way up front with the guys, and we went through the muddy section, like the first 10 people in the race, and we were talking about the guys in the back, like the 200 people behind us, like that had to be so bad, because I actually slipped and actually started rolling down the mountain at one point, and the only person with me then was Doug. Doug, if you can see this, you saved my life, because I was, I slipped, and there's, you're on the side of a mountain, so actually for like 10 seconds was rolling down the mountain and caught, tree caught me, and Doug pulled me back up, and we're just standing there laughing. But the mud was pretty bad. So
yeah, some of those downhill goat paths, you could actually look at them, and it was ankle deep mud, and then you could see a 1.5 2 foot wide slide that somebody in front of us somewhere had slid off the side of the trail. And it was pretty steep gradient going down there. There was quite a few of them, and at that point, we were allowed to use poles after the first aid station, which I took because of having an ankle injury. I just wanted extra stability. And there were times I thought there's no way I'd be able to stay on this trail if I wouldn't had poles to, plant down and get that extra contact.
Do you feel, Lee, that maybe the Yana and Tristan maybe owe you something at this point for just turning the course to mush before you got there?
I definitely think so. I think there should be some gifts sent our way to the back of the pack, the mid to the back of the Packers for that.
I don't think it's a bad idea, and maybe a 3 hour plus or whatever kind of handicap.
Yeah, handicap there. Yeah, I think that would make it a little more, fair.
Tristan, third time. Wow, why you keep coming back to this one?
Well, the main reason is probably because it's a good time of year. We're from the same area, so the trails up here still have snow on them, I'm pretty sure. So it's nice to get a race in that's, the weather's not horrible. And it's a fun race too. It's the type of race I like to do, a lot of vert. I really like that distance between 100K and 100 mile. And yeah, it's a good time of year, so it's just all perfect storm, I guess.
All right, and at the moment, it could just be on my end, but Tristan, your audio is good. Your video is frozen, but I just want to let you know that you're frozen in a pretty good position. Like it's not really awkward, embarrassing at all. So we're good here.
Okay.
So man, like you didn't just sell it for me in terms of like GDR third round. You're just like, I don't know, the weather's better down there. Like there's snow up here, so I just go down there and do that. Come on, there's got to be something about that, of course, that really kind of appeals, or the event or the nature or something.
I know what it is.
And for all of you, jump in with one or two. This can totally be conversational. I don't just need to steer.
I don't know why we didn't even go there yet, but at the very end, the finish line is basically you have to go up 604 steps up the waterfall and then run down the waterfall into the finish line through the creek. So there was a picture of me going up the stairs, and I'm all like hunched over, and like, I'm in the second place, and everybody's like, yay. But going up those steps after the 70 some miles, that's a 800-foot climb, and it's 600 stairs with the spike. I mean, it's cool, but that's like the last kick in the butt. And so I think that's what makes it really unique. And then you have to run down the waterfall on the road. So you lose 800 pounds, or 800 feet right there to get to the finish line. So that's like a cool twist at the end. That's pretty challenging because I ran the race, then finished, took a shower, took a nap, ate, and basically started driving back home at 5 in the morning. And as I was driving down that road, I saw people finishing, and it was 24 hours later. Like these people were, death marching down the road, and it was just humbling. They were still out there moving. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. The end of it is pretty cool.
I had it in my head that my legs were trashed. I mean, my quad, there's so much downhill running. Like I was trashed, right? I finished smoking my quads on that first descent down into the park. And I had my poles. I thought, I'm going to take my poles. I'm going to solemn ski all the way up them steps, right? I'm going to plant them at 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, and I'm just going to push as hard as I can. And I get to them steps, and they were open, great steps, so you couldn't put your poles down. I was so mad. I was grabbing hold of the railing and just pulling as hard as I could. But it was great. It was like just energy that came from somewhere, because I was that mad that I couldn't use my poles to go up the steps.
But this was the first year that he let people use poles. I thought it wasn't allowed. So did you find it useful?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did. There was a lot of downhills towards the end that I just don't know how else I would have braked. I mean, my quads are so trash. I couldn't walk downhill, but I could get that free turnover, and just plant the poles in front of you and just kind of use them as your braking. It was very helpful. I was glad. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, I had a pretty significant ankle injury 8 days out, and those poles were instrumental on me finishing. I know they were.
So for Yana and Lee, it being your first GDR rodeo, what's something maybe that you found in the course that you weren't maybe prepared for, that you would have been like, man, now that I've done it, I know this, or it would have been nice if somebody, maybe told me about this angle or how to prepare, what to expect or whatever. And then for Tristan, what was something maybe that didn't go quite in a certain way in the first or second round that you were trying to prep for differently on this third go round?
For me, it was downhill running. I love running downhill and I love just smoking downhill, but this was just so much downhill running. I mean, after the rain stopped, it was just crushing every downhill, and it took a toll. It took a toll on my quads. And then the other thing, and this is inevitable, and I would have had no way to train for this, but it was mid-70s in the middle of the day. Today I ran, it was 38 degrees or something. It's not, we don't have that temperature here yet, and not a cloud in the sky in the afternoon. And I was warm, dripping off my face, but that was something I wouldn't be able to train for so much, for a March race for me.
Yeah, I agree with Lee, but also that's something you can't control, because the week before the race, I looked at the weather and I'm like, oh no, it's going to be in this, upper 70s. And we really didn't have a chance to train in heat. So I don't think anybody was prepared for it. And I think that was an issue for a lot of the people in the race. But I became pretty good about reading race reports and looking up the course and, looking up the elevation and the hills. And I have similar trails here. So I would do hill repeats for 2.5 months. Ask my friends. I did some crazy hill repeats. So I was pretty prepared for what it was like. The one thing I wasn't prepared for was, I kind of regret not bringing my water filter, because it got so warm, in the middle of the day. I was running out of fluids between the aid stations, and it was only 7 miles apart. So I think I would definitely bring my water filter next time. And then I had no idea how close to the record I was getting. There's something about me just missing all the course record by 4 minutes. You know this. I would definitely, if I knew it, I would run more of those roads, because there was so much running in it. And then, when you're in mile 60, you're run hiking it. So I think I would push it a little more. But what made it really special for me was I had no idea how close I am to the front, to the second and the first guy. So people started telling me at the aid stations, like, there's only 2 guys ahead of you. And they were just so excited. And I got so much support out there from, it was like girl power, and everybody was just so excited. I loved it. It's probably going to be the highlight of my racing life for a long time.
Wow, that's bold. What are you talking about? You got a full crew. Well, that's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine. All right.
What was the question? Okay, so one thing I wanted to do this time, well, actually, the funny thing is, out of the 3 finishes I had for GDR, this was my slowest. I was 20 seconds slower than my 2021 time. And my goal was really to take it easy in the first half, because my previous finishes, like, I couldn't run the last half. It was just a lot of walking. I mean, my quads were blown. And this time I kind of reeled it back, I guess, in the beginning, and my legs felt pretty fresh in the last half. It was still tough to run, but I could definitely move better and more comfortably than previously. But it still didn't really pay out, because I'm slower probably now than I was back then. But I was able to finish with limited pain, so that's what's important to me, I guess.
And Tristan, how old are you again?
33.
33. Well, yeah, well, that's nice work. And so how about the conditions, though? I mean, being 20 seconds slower, was with the mud and with the heat, was that just a slower?
It could have been a combination of both, because, I mean, even though where I was in position to leave, like, the mud definitely was bad, but it wasn't that bad. But it was definitely slowing me down. The heat definitely kind of got to my gut a little bit in the afternoon. I was running around with, like, my shirt lifted up and the breeze kind of hitting my stomach, and that felt great. But definitely a little bit of nausea going on. But I've run enough races in the heat, at least that temperature heat, where it wasn't that bad of a it wasn't that bad. Like, I could manage it pretty well. And I did carry a bladder as well. And, like, I don't think I filled it up until Skeena Gap, the third aid station. And then I think I went all the way to, like, Long Creek without filling it up again. So I was pretty good on water and everything.
So with that being, Yanni, you just mentioned it. And then so you referenced around 38, and then with another aid station name, like, were you, so in that heat and with the gut distress, I mean, how much do you think you were putting down, Tristan? And Yana, how much when you were running out, I mean, what were you carrying on you, Yana, in terms of quantity?
So I only had, because there's aid stations every 7 miles, I only had my 2 bottles, and I don't even know how big they are, but it was fine until, like, maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when we hit the fire roads and there's no shade and the sun is, like, on you. And so there were, like, a couple of really nice streams, like nice flowing water. So I really wanted my filter then, and I didn't have it. And then Sean has these signs put up at one point at this big climb. Lee's laughing. And they say, 1 more mile and you're there. So I saw the sign, and I'm climbing this hill, and I'm like, okay, great. I'm 1 mile from the aid station. And I drank all my Gatorade. Well, when I got to the mile, it was a lie, because we were 3 miles away from it. Said 1 mile and you're there. So you get to that mile, and it's like, oh no, you're not there, or 1 more mile and you're there. So it was one of those funny,
That's not funny.
This hill
It wasn't
never
funny.
ends.
That's not
It was
funny.
not funny. It wasn't
So
funny.
at that point, I'm like, okay, so it was like 3 miles to the aid station from there. So I was almost in trouble, but I told Sean, I'm like, come on. Who does that?
Not even just the signs. The sign was 1 mile to go, and then there was a sign that said a half mile to go. Then there was a sign that said, you are here, keep going. And that was it, on this dirt road. And you climbed, I don't know, under 1,000 feet in a mile or two. And there was a course marshal there to direct you off the road to a forestry road that you had 1.5 miles to go to the aid station. And it's nighttime, at least when I was there, it was dark. There's strobe lights and music blaring, and you can see all this light, and you think, that's the aid station. and you get there and it's a guy in the back of a pickup truck saying, "Turn left," 1.5 miles. It was crazy. It was mean.
Yeah, that's where the experience helps, because after the first time, I definitely knew not to trust that sign, because that sign's been there for every time I've run it.
You should have told us. I was really thirsty for the 3 miles. But yeah, I mean, somebody just said it could be dangerous, because it could be, like, if you're dehydrated and you get there. So, but they actually have that at Barkley Fall Classic. They have the same thing. It's like 1 more mile, and then it's like, oh no, we're kidding, 1 more mile, and it's so I don't know why they do it, but don't trust it.
Yeah, and the music up at the turnoff or whatever was definitely deceiving, especially probably for somebody who hasn't done it before, because you can hear the music, you can hear the people on the microphone, and you're like, that's definitely the aid station. And you get there and it's not, and that
sucks. And you're going to weigh in there too, Lee?
I was just going to say, I carried 2 16-ounce flasks, for anybody else doing it. And I thought that was sufficient. And I just tried to make sure I emptied them, like, at the short aid stations, and at the longer aid stations, I made sure they were empty when I got in. I filled them, and I ate, or I got my bag of food, and I tried to, pound as much of another one as I could and try to refill it quick before I left. So, because some of them are, 4 miles, and then some of them are, 10 and 11. I think those last two are apart. And there was one water drop on the dirt road. And when I remember that one, Yana. And then when I got to that one, I, finished both of my flasks and refilled at that water drop just to try to take advantage of it.
As I was thinking about that too. And so Yana, with you and Manitou's coming up, just a couple parallels here. Hopefully you're going to crush it. I think similarly, I think my first Manitou's just went out at a pretty decent clip. I think it was me and a friend and teammate, Ben Nephew, and then some other guy from California. And we were, I think, cruising kind of the top 3 or the leaders pretty much together through like 26 or so. And then my wheels fell off after that. And being my first one, I didn't necessarily know what was coming. And I think it's around, and Tristan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at aid station where you cross the road after that long descent, is it like, I think it's either 20 or 26 miles, but then you go into this, like, I think 10-mile stretch where you have maybe like a 4-mile climb, and then it kind of levels off, and then you climb some more, and you get into this kind of usually wet, just kind of marshy running or whatever. But the first time I think I went through there and where I was bonking, I also just tapped out of whatever water I had. I think I also maybe had 40 ounces on me, and I think I went through it. And then I just kind of started just picking up from whatever clear water I could find just on course in terms of creeks or whatever. But that's another stretch similar, and another race where I think it pays to maybe take it out a little bit more conservative and just not bury yourself. But definitely with that stretch, also being conservative with water, or if you do have a filter, you might use it in that section as well. And then the other parallel being, it was, with GDR being a really tough course, 16,000 miles over the 74 miles. I mean, it just speaks, I think, how bold the metrics are of Manitou's Revenge, where now you're going to get the same elevation in like 50, now it's 53 miles, which is, I don't know. And then for Tristan, for you to talk about the Devil's Path, maybe trying to do 100 miles in the Devil's Path. I mean, maybe you could talk just a little bit about that in terms of just how, I guess, the technical nature of that versus kind of what you have seen in maybe PA or down on the death race, and just kind of a comparative kind of weigh in. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the trails in the Devil's Path and the Catskills in general are way more technical than Pennsylvania. Way more technical than Georgia. Like GDR there. I mean, the trails really, in my opinion, weren't that bad. They're pretty smooth, pretty runnable. The Catskills, it's just rocks, boulders. They're slippery. You're slipping. It's hot. Not a lot of water. It's pretty much like straight up and down. I mean, it's like 1,000-foot climbs, 700-foot climbs, relentless.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's
great.
So I'm going to be excited to see how that goes for you, Anna. I think intentionally I started. So the second time that I went at it, I intentionally asked to start in the second wave because I didn't want to get caught up in racing. And I think it really worked. I was for sure more conservative, and I was through the Devil's Path and through maybe, I think it was like 41 miles, and then rolled and tore my ankle, and that was kind of that. But I felt really good at that point late in the race. So I think it definitely paid to be more conservative there. But I'm really excited. Hopefully you'll be in the wave ahead of me. And so I'll just only find out after the finish how it went for you. But I'll be pretty stoked to see how it goes. And then Tristan, for you, in terms of another comparison, and it looked like it was a pretty good precursor to GDR, the reverse ring. I mean, you were an hour slower through a reverse ring for a course that was 2 or 3 miles shorter. I mean, what do you think of the reverse ring comparatively, or the ring?
You know, the climbs and everything really aren't that bad down there. It's just the terrain, those annoying rocks that are jagged, pointing out of the ground, making it pretty hard to like run. You can hike pretty well or run really slowly, but it's really hard to run. So just the change in technicality, making the GDR being a little bit more smoother, I definitely knew I could beat my reverse ring time for sure. But it's definitely really, really good training.
And then Lee, how about you? Now that you have the experience of a GDR under your belt, something that is in some ways burlier in the sense of maybe being longer and compounding that, does it leave you wanting more of that? Or do you have any others on your radar following?
Yeah, my plan is Eastern States next year in 24. And I really like that 100K distance. So my plan is to kind of pick off the East Coast 100K-ish races that are Western States ticket races and try to collect them, putting in. Yeah, I'll be doing Hellgate to use them as my tickets to get in. But Eastern States is my plan next year, and the complete opposite, I'm thinking about doing Comrades in 25. But I'd like to pick off those ticket races that are on the East Coast and try to get out west.
That's cool. The Comrades is on your radar. I mean, just the acquaintances that have done it. I mean, such a iconic event. That's pretty awesome. And then Benjamin, I'm zero weighing in. Lee, you saw his rolled ankle before GDR. Seems like you'd have a peg leg right now, so it was a pretty good one.
It was completely purple, foot, leg swollen up. I went and got it x-rayed. It happened the Friday, so 8 days before on Friday. I actually went and got it x-rayed, and the doctor said, air cast, no work, no weight bearing for 7 to 10 days. And I worked the next night, and I refused the crutches. I refused their work note. I told him, like, you don't even know what this is going to feel like tomorrow. And then when he asked how long his race was, I told him, and he goes, "Oh, so it's a bike race?" No, it's a running race, a mountain race. And he said something like, a normal person wouldn't be able to do that. How would you be able to do that in your shape? And, it happened. It just adds to the story. I wasn't going to give up at that point. I needed to know. So,
well, that was a good excuse to taper then for that 7 days.
Taper. I didn't run for the next 7 days.
Mm-hmm. So. And Sayard, thanks for weighing in and just saying congrats. Proud of you, Lee, and way to represent. So
she's a great coach. She really is.
Yeah, Sayard, if you had to coach Lee again for it, and based on his experience, would you change anything about his coaching plan as a build-up? And then while you're weighing in with that comment, Tristan, you got Jigger Johnson on deck for the fall.
I'd say that's like summer, mid-August. Yeah, that looks like fun. 104 miles, 32,000 feet of climbing.
And not just easy mileage up there. Speaking of terrain and technicality. Yeah.
Well, I completed my Adirondack at 46er last summer, and I really like just kind of messing around in the mountains up there. And I know the Whites are different than the Adirondacks, and I've never been to the Whites. but it should be a lot of fun.
Right on. Well, I'm excited to see how that shakes out as well. That's a pretty beastly course that's laid out. Well, anything else, Yana Lee or Tristan, that you want to mention, or any other fun stories that maybe didn't come up that would just be fun to plug about the weekend?
I wish Sean was here to share his rescue story. Did he tell you about it?
No. All right. So, give me the gist.
Well, I can't tell it near as funny as Sean can, and like you said, Sean's always has these stories.
Yeah.
So apparently Sean gets a phone call. There's somebody laying in the middle of the road at Nimblewell, which is the last checkpoint, and this person can't get up. So Sean drives his truck up there, and apparently he tries to put this guy in front of his truck, and this guy's so cramped up he won't fit in front of the truck. So Sean puts him in the back of the truck, and it's like Jan is laughing, so she knows this is a horrible road. I mean, it's absolutely I wouldn't ride a bicycle down this road, right? So this guy's in the back of Sean's truck, bouncing down the road. Sean says this guy takes his headlamp and he knocks on the window of Sean's truck with the headlamp, and Sean just waved and kept on driving. Drove him all the way back to the finish line with this poor soul laying in the back of his truck. So
that's good. Especially if he was on a second night of like no sleep, and it was just like made it all the fuzzier and blurrier. And yeah, right on. All right. Yana, Tristan. Yeah, go ahead, Yana.
It's a beautiful place to go. That I would encourage people to go there just because it's so beautiful. And Sean has a great team, the volunteers, even the local people. The energy there is amazing. I drove there and car camped. There was a karaoke night when I showed up. So there's people singing around the fire, and it's an awesome experience. So I totally recommend it. I know a lot of my friends signed up today or yesterday when the registration opened, and people, please message me. I'll help you train, because you have to train for it. I mean, don't just show up and do it. You got to show up and be ready. It's pretty challenging.
Yep. Right on. And I guess train for it, show up, it's challenging. And Sayard weighing in there that I'd say no run on the 8th day out. We did work on the descents, but I think we could fine tune that even more, since that could help performance later in the race. So Sayard, thanks for being on live again. Yana, Tristan, Lee, well done. Thanks for taking some more of your time out of here tonight to join us. And I'll be stoked to catch up with each of you after another round coming up.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, babe.
Good job, guys.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to Tristan, sorry, just cut you off there as you were commenting as well. I apologize. That ended up kind of being, I felt rude. I didn't know you were all right. All right, here we go. Transitioning. We are going to move over to the Rabid Raccoon. Sarah, thanks for being on the back end. Lipsey, always good to have you on. Thanks, man. And Trevor, thanks for, look at you, dude. Look at you, kind of like your pro setup with a pro podcaster. I should just kind of put mine in mute and just let you run the show there, it looks like. What's that swank light going on in the background?
Yeah, are you a SoundCloud rapper, or what's going on?
Nah, it's just a little gaming setup.
Gaming?
Oh,
Yeah.
The difference of just
Is
your
that
audio
how you
quality.
swear at kids who like kill you in COD? Or you like?
Yeah, pretty much. That's how the early 2000s Call of Duty lobby started.
Yeah, I know you're a serious gamer, so I was hoping you'd think it was funny and not like you being a
Yeah,
jerk.
No, it's good.
When I was in college, I used to watch my my roommate get just destroyed by 12-year-olds at Call of Duty. It was like the highlight of my night.
Happened to the best of us.
All right, Rabid Raccooners in here. This event, second year, right? Am I correct there? This second year, Ren?
Yep.
All right. In Hookstown, PA, Beaver County. And you guys can tune me more into location here roughly. 20 mile, 100 mile. And there's a 20 mile night run. Was that in that mix as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
I heard that one was really tough. I mean, well, hey, Trevor, you were there for that one too. And Sarah, did you run the 100 or which one did you run? You ran the 100. So you're both there.
They also did the night
Like,
20. Yes.
Yeah.
I actually didn't
don't
even
tell me
know-
that it was tough because by the time I got to that one, I was already at 80. Yeah, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, I actually didn't even see a single one of the midnight 20 miler start, so I didn't even know if they actually started the race.
Oh man.
Yeah,
There
I
didn't see
suspect
anybody on the board.
we eventually saw a couple of them, I think, but for the most part, I didn't see a lot of them out on the trail.
That was probably good for you though, because then, like I would be like, oh man, here comes another one of those 20-mile guys. I've been out here a while. I know I would be like a little little.
It depends on what you feed off of, because being alone in the dark and the freezing cold at night is also not super fun.
Right. Oh,
I
so
would
I
have
guess
killed for a little bit of company.
You see a warm body, like, hey, can I get a hug real quick?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So this brief intros here. Sarah Wallace coming to us from your Pittsburgh, correct?
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah, right
lovely.
on. She's been racking up, and this is when I had you on before. I think it was after maybe Rim to River. Is that when you were on?
Mhm. Yeah,
right on.
And maybe after Dogwood before as well.
Right. And Dogwood again was another one that wasn't necessarily on my radar. So thanks for coming in now here on a second one where I just don't know much about this race. So thank you. And so I think when I introduced last time, I also mentioned the same thing: racking up a good number of ultras the past few years, including Zion, Oil Creek, and Eastern States. For Rim to River, she sent a. Now I'm just kind of repeating myself when you were on before, but you've had some awesome runs at Rim to River. Third in 2020, sixth in 2021, and then a big PR this past year when I had you on in 22:46. She was a top female and second overall at Rabid Raccoon 100 in 29 hours. And then on deck, which maybe we can get into in a little bit, Heiner Tahoe 200 and a return to River as well. So Sarah, thanks for being on with us again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Trevor, thanks for reaching out to me today. Appreciate it. Coming to us from Lewiston, PA. How far is Lewiston from Hookstown? I mean, is that you?
It was like 3.5 hours, roughly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually really like Rothrock is my mountains pretty much. I'm right on the Greenwood side, so I'm like 20 minutes from State College.
Oh, that's what just threw me, because I was thinking in Hookstown. I thought Rabid Raccoon was going down close to Rothrock area, but I was just way off there. Huh.
Yeah, it's like 20 minutes from the Pittsburgh airport, so it's
wow.
almost in Ohio.
And okay, and that makes sense because the with the crew being out there from Ohio. What's their group's name? They also have a great podcast. They do videos.
The Ridge Runners.
Ridge Runners. Yeah. Yep. I felt bad. I think when I first started Trails Collective, I was doing weekly rundown, and they had also started a weekly rundown. I was like, hope they don't think I'm just kind of copying them, and they're doing good work. And then I switched to Trails Collective Live because I was just switching the format up, and then realized that they were also doing live, and I'm like, damn it, I just did it again. Like, we're kind of paralleling.
There's a lot of room out there. There's a lot of people doing crazy stuff. There's plenty of room for all of you.
And it looks like they were out there making a pretty good film. I didn't get to check it out yet, if it's been out, but I know they were out in force, right?
Yeah, Skeeter's going to be in it. He did a lot of barking, but he's going to be in it.
It's good. And so Trevor, coming to us from Lewistown, fourth at World's End and 10th at Eastern States in 2022. He was the overall 100-mile winner here at Rabid Raccoon in 22:48. And also on deck, Heiner and Javelina Jundred Jundred. I guess I've always just been reading it for years, but
I have no idea.
The J is pronounced like an H.
Yeah.
So it is the Javelina 100?
Javelina 100, yeah.
100.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that makes sense. All right, maybe I did know that. All right, here's to the moment. All right, so great job on the win. And then Lipsey, always good to have you. For those who don't know, Lipsey has, that boy is out there. He joined us quite a bit. He is a probably mid-distance specialist, wicked fast, and constantly at the top. And so I'm stoked that you just got in a really good 20-mile effort here. And hopefully you're excited for Breakneck in a few weeks because your fitness and strength looks pretty good at the moment. Sporting it. Nice.
There he is.
Nice. That's good.
My favorite sweatshirts.
It's good. I didn't even get one of those. I wanted it in blue, and then they were all gone. So
I gotta tell you, it is great in blue.
if you wear it again and I see you just lay it down somewhere, I may just have to,
It could happen.
snag
I've
that.
missed a lot of clothes that way.
Yeah.
throughout the years.
Coming to us, and you're no longer in Marysville, or you're in Marysville
Oh
now?
no, I'm in Marysville. I'm just in the
Oh,
basement.
you're in Marysville. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. 20-mile winner in 2:38, and of 100 ultra sign up finishes as of last time I talked to you, which is probably like 112 at this point. The vast majority are wins. He's been a frequent contributor, as I mentioned, including I think like 4 out of 4 or whatever, 3 out of 3 on the New Year's Eve special. So thanks for plugging in so much. So for you all, tell me a bit about, I guess, where Rabid Raccoon goes down, and a little bit about the course and the format. And for this segment, feel free to be just conversational, as Lipsey's been setting the stage for already. Feel free to jump in with one another and carry it. But so as a collective, jump in and somebody start with what Rabid Raccoon's all about.
First off, Sarah, how close are you to Hookstown and Raccoon Creek State Park?
Yeah, so I'm about 45 minutes away. So this is a park that's a little familiar to me. We go out as a group at least once a year to run there for a friend's birthday in December. So this is a park I know. So we were pretty pumped when there was going to be a race there. Just because, as you all got to see, it's a really nice park with some really fun trails. And this is the right season to be there, even though it gets so muddy. It gets a little overgrown in the summer. So it's a great park. I highly recommend people get out to Raccoon if you haven't, and do some running there.
My next question, Sarah, was, since it's local and you kind of know it, is it always that muddy, or is it not always that muddy?
So this time of year, it's going to be like that. I mean, it was last year too, I think. The group I run with often goes out in December, and we usually have a little bit better conditions. But there's some parts out there that you can tell are pretty muddy always. I don't really know what you're talking about though, because you were ahead of the 20 milers. And so your muddy is nothing like what Trevor and I saw.
Yep.
I guarantee you. I'm not saying you had an easy time out there. You were flying, but you did not see real mud.
I also heard, however, that for the last 20 miles, it got like real cold, which was good for not having mud. So it was probably like a little, I'm not saying it was easier. I'm just saying you were probably like, you probably liked that the temps dropped because the mud wasn't peanut butter or bear grease anymore. And
yeah.
And another thing I just want to say is that I think you guys must be incredibly tough, because it was starting to wear on my hip. Like, I was like really glad to be done. The left inside of my hip, which has never really bothered me before, was like, okay, like if it would have been a marathon, I might have been like, boy, I don't know if my body can take another 5 miles of this grinding. Cause I mean, Ian, you weren't there, but and the mud was just everywhere. And then you try to step off the side and go in the leaves. And guess what? It looked like it wasn't there, but it was still there. It was under the leaves. It was like the same thing. And it was like, just like working my hips and oh God, if it would have been a marathon, I'm so glad it wasn't a marathon. I was like, I can stomach 20. And then when it was almost 21, and it was like coming over to 21. And I'm like, where's that finish line? My hip has had enough. Like,
yeah, it is not a 20-mile loop. It's not a 20-mile loop. It's way more than 20.
So props to you guys for being extremely hardy, because after 20 miles, my hip was done. And I was like, man, these guys are going to be out here for another, 60 at least. So,
yeah. And what was the, so the 20-mile, what was the length of the loop? And then aside from just like mud, how much like gain and loss, or just give us the rundown of how the race went, and then as it pertains to the 20 and the 100.
I think that, for the loop that I did, I think it had 3,300 feet or something like that. Does that sound right? 3,300 feet or something?
I think I was getting close to 4,000 a loop, but we did the first loop you guys did, like inside the park, and then come out. But we did something different than what you guys did in the 20 miler before we come up out or something. There was like a different way we went. So I don't know, but I know like when you come through the last aid station and cross the timing mat, that was 20 miles. But when you come up from there to the sign that said finish was like another 2.5 miles. So here I thought I was running a 100-miler, and it ended up being like 103 or maybe even 105, because I was like, oh, I ran Eastern States, I'll let them know those last 3 miles are usually, they can take 30, 40 minutes. I was like, if I run 100 flat, maybe it's a little bit different, but it ended up being more than what Eastern States even was.
Yeah, I think I ended up clocking in about 105 miles and something like 18,000 feet of climb, but my watch sometimes shorts me on that.
Mine actually died at 75 miles. So I had like 75 miles and 14,000 feet. So
yeah, I'm pretty confident about the mileage though. Because my pacers were a little over too. So yeah, right. we got a little more bang for our buck than we signed up for.
Cool. Yeah, I guess they changed the course from the first year. It wasn't the same. They took,
a little bit more
a lot
elevation.
more road. Yeah, a lot more elevation, less road. So it was actually a harder course.
Oh, cool. That's good to know. Yeah, because it was mostly like 95%. At least ours was 95% single track. We only popped down the road for might have been a mile.
We did that same where you come out right there and there's a random porta potty sitting there.
Oh,
I thought that's where the aid station was supposed to be, because when I come through first, there wasn't even an arrow there which way to go. So I went right, not knowing the course, and ran about a mile down the other way and had to turn around. Yeah, there was no arrow there when I started.
When I went there was a guy. He hopped out of the car and was like, that way. And I was like, okay, good. Because otherwise, man, I would have just been going.
Yeah, that's where I was at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So you're okay, Matt. Go ahead. I'll say it after.
I was going to say, so I came down the night before. My buddy Clayton Bouchard came with me. And Sarah, it's like when I drove down, we drove through I don't know if anybody, Ian, if you've been to Pittsburgh, I don't know, but
it's been a while.
It's anybody who has been to Pittsburgh. It's way better to be a local and drive there than an outsider, at least in the downtown Pittsburgh. And I don't sound like a boomer when I say this, but I was driving and I was like, nope, wait, hold on. Nope. I've been in Pittsburgh a couple times. So I was ready for this, no, wait, hold on. We got to go this way. Eventually we made it through the Fort Pitt tunnel, underneath the incline and all that. We made it through the Fort Pitt tunnel. We came out, and after you're in downtown Pittsburgh, you come out and it's just bloop, and then you're in the woods and you're at Raccoon Creek and you're out there. You don't feel like you were just in a city, but it is that close to, like Sarah said, the airport and downtown. I mean, you were boom, right in the woods. And then, so I came down with Clayton and we're sitting there the night before at our, where we're staying. And I'm just sitting there on the bed like this with my hands on my chest. And I'm looking at the ceiling, and I was I was we're in Hookstown. And I was hey, I had a friend when I went to college. He was from Hookstown. And Clayton's oh yeah. And I was yeah, maybe I'll see him at the race. But I was probably not, because he lives in Colorado Springs. And then we got to the race, and I get a tap on the shoulder, and my buddy's hey, what's up? And I'm what are you doing here? And he's oh, we moved back a year ago. And I was okay, cool. So that was unexpected. But yeah, anyways, that's all I was going to add, was that it was remarkably close to downtown Pittsburgh. I was blown away that we were in a concrete jungle, and then we were in a state park in 15 minutes.
Yep.
So for state parks, and you guys may or may not know this, state parks have a tough time, or are they not really? Actually, maybe not. Do they have a tough time getting permits for some of these longer races between Memorial Day and Labor Day? Do they kind of have to go outside of those windows that you're aware of?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I suspect that this park, because they do have boating and swimming and things like that, that it's really good for the park to get big groups of people in it during the off season. So I'm sure that's great for the park, but I don't know anything about the permitting.
Yeah. And it just seems like for an early season race, if it seems like, Sarah, you mentioned that maybe it was muddier this year, but it looks like it's often maybe in certain patches, just seems like it's just based on what you guys are describing, that maybe it would be I don't know, even cooler course, or better or more appropriate course in some ways if you were doing it in, I don't know, June or September or October, something like that, where maybe it's firmed up a bit there.
Yeah. It gets a little grown over. That's the only thing. And we're probably starting to see some of that. There's, it just starts to get a little grown over in some of the parts of the course or parts of the trail. But yeah, I mean, when we go out in the early winter, it's fantastic. And I think you guys probably got to see this. It's a super runnable. Some of the trails are really runnable and really kind of fun to run. They have a lot of like switchbacks and little roller coasters to them. And it's just when it's covered in mud and you can't catch your footing, it makes it a little less fun. So I do think it's a really great park to go check out. But yeah, this time of year, it
does.
gets pretty messy.
It does sound like under ideal conditions, it would be a course that just flowed. I mean, that elevation metric for 20 miles is pretty smooth where, yeah, it makes you work forward a little bit, but it sounds pretty flowy. So if you weren't just dancing and Matt, to your what you were feeling in some of the really muddy races I have done, yeah, you're just using so much internal hip stabilizers that things just, they're like, look, like we're not used to this. Like, stop, like just stop doing this for the moment. But it would flow under pretty ideal conditions.
Yeah, I think that they have this race early in the spring. It's a good early season opener, and it fits a lot of people's, I think, marathon training plans too for any. Yeah. It could be a long run, or it could be for a setup for a longer trail race or something like that. But I think they have it in the spring for that reason. And then two, there's not as much going on, so that's kind of a nice window for them. And then it helps keep the trails open. So by all these people using it, I think that'll keep it from getting overgrown as much during the summer. And yeah, like Ian, like you were saying, with that course elevation profile, like I went into it thinking I was going to break 220, and I was like, I got out there, it was like within the first mile, I was like, if it looks like this, I don't know about that. It was just, man, I was surprised at how much it worked me. It was like a butter battle. It was like the mud was really, really tough.
And then how about for you, Trevor and Sarah, with then that magnified? I mean, yes, maybe it changes to a certain extent if the intensity is different. I mean, you're maybe not striding out quite as much. You're not stabilizing in some ways as much, but still really cumulatively adds up. So from what you were feeling, I mean, did that really wear you down differently than you were anticipating, or maybe were anticipating, and you kind of had to do a certain number of things for just kind of damage control?
I mean, the first loop I did, it wasn't real messy. So like I tried to avoid it as much as possible. Then I was like, I was thinking about it. I'm like, I got to do this 4 more times. So I might as well just on the second one, just get in it. Cause at this point, all the 20 milers are going to be through except for the backpack and stuff. So pretty much like after the first loop, it was just hang on and ride it. I mean, if I fell, I got back up. I didn't take any falls, but it was just like grab trees and slide. I wasn't really trying to like take big steps or anything like that. It was basically just slide as much as I could versus striding out. It wasn't that long of a section, but it was there and it was deep. I mean, my shoes were brown instantly and they stayed brown the whole time. So
yeah. So I went into it with a goal in mind of trying to push myself a bit early in the race, which isn't my usual MO, but trying to make myself a little bit more uncomfortable than usual. And and it kind of like what Trevor was saying, it was a little easier to run a little harder than I was really comfortable with during that first loop. And then it was like the conditions plus I had worn myself more than I'm used to. So it the same as Trevor said, it was like just hanging on till my pacers got there and could perk me up a little bit. And then just trying to stay warm overnight and kind of keep my head in the game.
Yeah, I think for the 100-mile distance, that was the worst part. It went from like 41 degrees to 6 with the wind chill. And I mean, it was quick. I mean, it was by like midnight. I mean, thankfully, I wasn't out there as long as Sarah, but I mean, it got cold quick. I got up from the last aid station for the last loop, and I could just feel like my stuff starting to like shiver, even as hot as it was. So I knew I had to like prepare a little bit better. And I don't know how many people did. I didn't get to go back the next day, but I heard there was a lot of people that actually dropped from hypothermia or preset hypothermia. I think the female that was running first for the longest time, I heard she dropped out from hypothermia.
Yeah.
But I couldn't confirm.
I'm super grateful for the aid stations that kept me warm and kept me going with hot chocolate or broth and pre-warmed hand warmers. They really knew what they were doing and kind of kept it possible to stay out there. And, you know, it's hard to leave an aid station where it's nice and toasty. So they were really good about kind of making you feel good about going back out by making sure you were warmed up, which was critical overnight. Because like Trevor said, it probably is one of the bigger temperature differences I've had during a 100-miler.
Yeah,
that's just a lot to contend with.
Did they have fires for you guys at the aid stations? I know there was one at like the finish line, but I don't know if that was like an actual aid station.
There was a fire at one of them, and then someone else just had like a heater going.
Yeah, I'm not honestly sure.
Checking in as a mile 85 statistic for hypothermia. What's up, Nate?
Yeah, it was quick. I think there's just the shift in temperature so rapidly is what did it. Because I mean, it was really quick.
That's my mom.
Hey. Dude, Sarah's mom, you're awesome. What are you talking
Right?
about?
She is.
She's a cool.
She's gonna come out and crew in Tahoe this summer, so I'm super pumped for her. We're getting her prepped for that.
So this will be your first. Well, actually, all right. Another comment, Ben. Thanks for dropping it in there too, because I feel like I did see this comment in terms of the reference to somebody having Hellgate eyes.
That was me. Yeah,
that was you.
Yeah. So like not mile, but lap 3, I started to get like the white fogginess in my eyes, and I could tell I needed to either something was happening, like from running into cold this winter and stuff. Like I noticed that I'd get it every now and again, and with a harder effort, usually it would get worse. Like I had a little bit of it when I ran Call of the Wilds this year. Not nearly as bad, but it just progressively got worse. And then by mile 5, my pacer, Josh Boyer, actually became my blind seeing eye dog. I couldn't see anything. All the lights were halos. I would run through aid stations. I had a wonderful crew that helped me out, tremendously. But so I was in and out of aid stations while he was still in the aid stations, but I would end up going up the side of the mountain, not even on trail anymore. And he would follow up behind me and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" So I'm like, I don't know. I can't see anything. And I think like for the most part, he thought I was like joking, and it wasn't as bad as it was until
this guy's funny.
There was a creek crossing. So like the last lap, I knew it was starting to get, colder as it was. And I was like, I don't really want to get my feet wet. And then, progress hypothermia or anything like that. So I was like, I want to try to avoid this as much as possible. And there was a little bit of there was a couple creek crossings, but a lot of them were easy to get through. But there was one towards the end of the last lap, or towards the end of the loop in general. He's like, "Hey, there's a log right here. Step on it." And I'm like, "I really can't see it." And he was like, "Step on the log." So I went to step on the log, and I never even hit the log and just splashed right into the water. And he's like, "Yeah, you can't see. I can tell 100% you can't see anything." So yeah, like all the lights, headlamps, everything. Like when I was coming into aid stations, all I was seeing was like out of a kaleidoscope. Like that's what the headlights looked like. And even like when I finished, I went to grab the tape, to run through the tape. And the guy's like, "Here, grab this." It doesn't look quite like that in the video, but he's like, "Grab this right here." Because I couldn't even see what was even happening. Like I couldn't even find the aid station. So when that video comes out of the, those guys that made the documentary or whatever, you'll see me running down the 10 to the finish line. I can't even see. I even turn around. I'm like, you probably don't want to film this because I can't even see what I'm doing. And this probably looks really bad.
Or it's going to look pretty awesome afterward. I mean, that's pretty.
It was wild. I never actually regained all of like my vision back until it was like 11 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Well, 12 o'clock Sunday afternoon. After I'd gotten up and re-showered and stuff, everything was still, I couldn't even see my phone, nothing. It was pretty intense.
And then Nate was just follow comment, battled it for 20 miles, piled on layers, and ultimately lost the battle. Congrats to y'all for battling through. And so, yeah, congrats to all of you for battling through that. That's a lot.
How long were you out there running with those Hellgate eyes, Nate Trevor?
So it started on loop 3, and then ultimately I think I ended up doing about 25 miles without. I'm seriously talking.
A blind marathon,
5% vision. Yeah.
Oh no,
it was really bad.
I don't understand. I don't like. I mean, so Josh was just seeing eye dog.
Yeah. So so the only way, luckily, the course is more runnable than most. Like this would have never happened on an Eastern States course, a World's End course, anything like that. And what I was seeing was just the leaf litter off to the side was darker than the actual part of the trail at night. So I was just following the lighter brown color, and he would tell me like, "Hey, sharp turn," and I'd slow down and take some choppy steps because it was really unfortunate because I never lost my legs. I literally ran the whole time. The plan was to run 12:30 pace every loop, do 4-hour loops and finish in sub 20 was my goal. And I ended up putting 3 extra hours on the last loop. So I did the first 4 in 4 hours, and the last one ended up being 7 with impaired vision.
Yeah, that's not pretty. I mean, that's not bad
Considering,
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
like it
that's your
was
primary
definitely a feat.
sensory
Yeah.
input.
Yeah, it was rough.
That's just that's crazy.
It was wild.
Yeah, and not something you can necessarily train for. I mean, you know.
No,
you
I
get
mean, the only thing we did was we just sprayed a ton of contact solution in my eyes because we didn't have any eye drops, and it literally did nothing. So I don't know, maybe I know like at Hellgate they prefer you wear glasses or something. I think that's somewhere like in the kit, maybe like the mandatory kit. I've heard that they recommend wearing glasses of some sort.
Yeah, I think certain years. I mean, I was only down there once, and it was a Sissy Gate year where it was pretty mild like conditions. We had really, really dense fog, which made it really crazy. I might as well have not had vision there for a certain amount of miles. But in the really cold years, and I think maybe it happened ahead of when Chrissy Mail kind of giving her experience and with where it came from in terms of the Hellgate eyes. She was actually. I won't go on that tangent. But yeah, in terms of where it came from, and maybe those years, it's really strongly recommended. But well, all right. And then on deck, you got some Heiners coming up, right? Sarah and Trevor for at least both
Are all
of you.
3 of us doing Heiner?
I won't be there this year.
Okay.
Same day as Nationals up in Sunapee. Sunapee? I was corrected before, but I can't remember the way to say it now. So
I will correct you.
Sunapee. It'll be the mountain running champs this year. So I'm gonna. Unfortunately, it's the same day as Heiner, so can't do both.
That's a really. I was Tom and I texting Tom, the 603 Racing out of New
Hooper.
Hampshire, the director of however you pronounce it, because again, I've only been reading it. I haven't heard it, I think, pronounced. So actually, I don't know either. Tom will correct us both if he listens to this later. But just looking at the fields of the Mountain Champs and Breakneck, it's pretty insane how deep both of those front fields are this year. I'm not aware of any race that's. I mean, Whiteface, we had a pretty good field last year, but I'm not aware of any race that's been as deep as either of these in the East Coast ever in terms of the front end. So are you going to stay up there, or are you going to go home and work for the week and then come back to Breakneck, or are you just going to?
Oh, I'll come home. I think my one buddy is going to come with me. So we're actually hoping to ski because I talked to Tom last night and he said that there's snow up there. So I'm taking my skin set up and hopefully we can ski on Sunday after. We might ski Saturday after the race, depending on, we don't want to smoke ourselves, but we'll definitely ski after the Sunday race, at least hike or something up the mountain, get a few runs in. And then we'll make our way down. And if the Catskills have snow, maybe we'll hit a run there because we have passes for the Northeast for some resorts and stuff and whatever. And then Beacon's not too far away. Beacon was like 4 hours. So I'll just make my way up on Friday or something. Friday night, I guess. Friday night, do that. Yeah, that's the plan. So would like to get some skiing in after that race. Let's see.
I'd like you to be getting your taper in because I would like to see you.
Yeah, but this might be the last snow. Dude,
come on. There's going to be another snow. There may not be.
The onion snow is come and gone.
Like
I don't think we're going to
Breakneck
see any
for
more
you.
snow.
I would much rather see you on a U.S. national team from a stellar day that just nails it at Breakneck versus catch one more last snow of the season. That's just me personally, but you know.
Well, you know,
All right.
I mean, I might just walk the snow. You know, like I don't have to run the snow. I could walk the snow. So you know, we'll see. I mean, maybe the snow. Maybe I won't do the snow. I don't know. We'll see. The snow is really good. I'm going to do it, but we'll see.
And then looking out, Trevor, you must be excited for Javelina, consistently kind of talked about as one of the biggest parties on the trail running circuit of the year.
Yeah, I just kind of want to see how the West Coast is and go out and run something that's extremely runnable rather than all these.
That's not West
rocks
Coast. What are you talking about? That's like in the middle of the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's closer to it's farther west than we are now, anyway.
anything west of Ohio is considered West Coast, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Sarah, this is going to be your first 200, right? That's pretty exciting.
It's super exciting. I think it's a little nerve wracking, but super exciting.
Speed.
Yeah.
And your mom's going to be out there crewing you?
I have a great group coming out and lots of support back here for a lot of the training runs it's going to take to just do a little more tweaking before. But yep, my mom's coming out and a group of friends. So I'll have lots of support that I have no shortage of. It's the logistics of making sure I can sleep and, can keep moving and all the snow they're getting. So Matt, I know you're excited about it here, but the snow out there has me a little nervous for June, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Should be a good time.
and I think I've been around Tahoe in the depths of summer too, where there's still, the patches of snow. So let alone them having pretty much all the snow in the country this winter.
Getting creamed.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Yep.
it'll be an adventure for sure.
Right
Sarah,
on.
you said your mom's going to help you out with this racing
Yeah.
for you. Are you going home for Easter? Because this would be the ideal opportunity for her to like practice. You got all the food on the
Practice
table,
crewing.
and you're like yams, and then she just hands you yams. Like just reach in there, just reach in there with your hands. Don't be ashamed. Just
Matt,
reach in
this is
there.
great. She's coming
reach
down to
in
visit
there.
that
Damn.
weekend. So maybe we'll get her out and do some training practice crewing.
Just have her just never let her know when it's going to happen around the house. Just be like sitting there, like just come in the room, and be like yams, and then she just like throws the yams in her face, and like pretzels, and just gives you that bag of pretzels. Like she's got to have a fanny pack ready to go. She's got to go
Do you hear that,
like,
Mom? We've got a training plan set up for you.
there you go. Just around
And
the
you're
house.
going to be depleted.
whatever.
So Catherine, I want, that's right. When she does come home for Easter or whenever, I want Sarah to just wear some bottles around or a bladder. And I want you to be able to know whether her bladder is more than half empty without even being able to actually open it up, inspect it. I just want you to sense it and to notice how her gait changes based on the weight on her back, so that you know that she actually needs to be drinking more.
And Sarah, you need to put some Vaseline around the top of all the bottles, the soft flasks, because that's how it's going to be sweaty. Mom, it's going to be sweaty. It's going to be a sweat fest. You got to be ready. You got to know how to get it off and get it back on, then time her. Just like NASCAR, like, come on, let's go. That'd be funny.
All right.
I'll send some updates about how my mom's training goes.
You should see if the Ridge Runners want to come out and do an episode about that.
Just my mom's training.
Just
She probably
mom's
would.
Yeah, that's all I want to know about. Like,
Yep.
I mean, it's just stepping it up like a couple notches from when you were a little kid. Like you're a little kid and you're just like SpaghettiOs. It's the same thing. It's just
basically
a little different.
All right. Anything else you want to plug on Rabid Raccoon? And then I'm going to jump to Spring on the Trails.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, as always, like a huge thank you to the folks who make it happen and the volunteers who were out there. I think it's really, I volunteered last year, and I know it's tough to be out there volunteering, especially overnight when there aren't a ton of runners coming through, because it gets quiet and it was so cold. So they were troopers. They did a great job at the aid stations this year, and I'm just so grateful for them.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, Ian, but Dean Carnazes. What's his? How you say? I've never known how to pronounce his name.
That's right. Did they get him in the mix or something?
Yeah, they brought him down. He did a book signing at the expo, and he was in the race. So yeah, he was there. I don't really know him too much. I know about his book and his feats and stuff, but I didn't know if you know that he was there.
I think I saw you mention it in one of your posts or plug it or something like that. And the same thing, I was like, what? Like, all right. That so did he do the 20 or the 100? What did he do?
He did the 100.
He did the 100?
I don't think he finished, but yeah, I passed him twice and he was just walking every time I seen him. So
yeah, he's in good spirits.
They brought me out for this god-awful event, all this mud. Yeah, I'm like 50 now. I'm like, what am I even doing?
He was.
I guess I would say if Dean is listening, there are so many other great races in Pittsburgh too, or Pennsylvania. Like, come back and like under better conditions, try out some of our events.
No, that's not it. Like, that's what we sign up for. We sign up for we want to know how tough we are, and this is a chance to be tough. I mean, we do have other great races, but this was an excellent opportunity to see a beautiful place under tough conditions. That's true. That's all I'm saying.
And to prove that the East Coast is the Beast Coast.
And to that point, maybe it wasn't his intent to finish. Maybe who knows what his fitness is or his desire or whatever. But it did take the Rabid Raccoon to break Dean Carnazes. Maybe he is now going into retirement just following the Rabid Raccoon.
We broke him.
He'll be back.
Yeah. Yep.
He read a book about it, Redemption.
And he's going to make a lot of money off of it. All right. Trevor, Matt, and Sarah, thank you so much for being on. Nice work to all of you. Sarah, particularly look forward to hearing how Tahoe's goes. Trevor, same thing with the party on the West Coast, Javelina. And then Matt, I don't think I'm going to make it up to New Hampshire. I'm getting chided by Tom for not making it up, but I don't think I'll make it up, but I'll be stoked to see it break neck and see how it goes. And Sunapee as well.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't break our necks.
Agreed.
We're like 3 for 3 on not breaking necks. So
come on, don't jinx this now.
Don't forget to download the course, Lipsey.
Yeah, well, I have a watch that doesn't download the course now, so
attaboy.
Whatever. Playing with fire again.
It do or it doesn't. So do you still not have a watch with the course on it?
My old watch, you could put the course on my old watch, but but that watch doesn't always give me accurate information. So I got a new watch, and my new watch is like much simpler and doesn't do that. So that's all right. Maybe I'll be tailing somebody. Who knows?
Well, let's hope the flags don't go away this year and it's not an issue. But otherwise, that makes me nervous, and I kind of want somebody to send you a watch where they can download the course onto it.
I mean, hey, if somebody sent me a watch and the course was on it, I mean, I might wear it. You might wear that's it. All right. That's all right. Whatever. I mean, part of the game. We know the road.
Yes. All right. Well, look forward to catching you all in the next round, and thank you so much for carving some of your time out tonight to chat for a while.
See you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
All right.
Good to
See you
chat,
guys.
everyone.
Good luck, guys.
All right. Switching gears one more time, bringing it back a little bit closer to, actually, it's probably about the equidistance. We are going to switch to spring on the trails. Stephen and Brenda and Matt, thank you so much for taking some of your time out of tonight in advance. Brenda, I know we've connected in the past.
Yep.
Have you joined us for an episode to weigh in on?
I did a clip for you for Estonia. It is marked wrong on Ultra Sign Up, just for the record.
Got it. That's right. Right. So we haven't had a chance to actually connect verbally because it was a submission.
I've been on the show with you.
So it's nice to meet you digitally. Stephen, good to see you again, man. And then Matt, I don't know if we've met, so it's nice to meet you right on digitally here as well. So this is Conquer the World endurance. Steve, you are kind of a singular kind of owner or headmaster of that ship, correct?
There's 3 of us.
Oh, 3 of you. Okay.
I would say I do most of like the in-person work, and then the other 2 guys are a little more behind the scenes, helping with many things.
Yep. All right. So one of these times I'm going to have to get them on as well, especially if they're kind of behind the scenes guys where they're going to be more awkward on video, which would be. All right. So one of the events, and you put on a multiple with Conquer the World, and you guys can weigh in and tell us a bit about spring on the trails here. So because my day got a little crazy, as it often does, I didn't get to do my sufficient pre-work in stalking each of you. So then you're going to have to do that stalking for me. Tell me where you're coming in from. Maybe let's go with some of the, I think, favorite races historically, and then something else you're going to have on deck. But then, Steven, I'm going to have you lead in with the endurance runs. Just kind of set the stage for staging ground format of the event. And kind of the nuts and bolts.
Sure. So this is our 3rd year of this race. It's a 3-mile loop with about 250 feet of gain each loop. So it's flatter again compared to the other races you had earlier in the show. Probably equal amount of mud though. It was hailed for a few hours and sleet and rain.
I gotta say, it's probably more mud than the other races. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Twisted Branch in 2021 was pretty muddy. Was it 2021? Yeah.
That did seem to be a common theme of events this past weekend, though. It sounded like Rabid Raccoon was just got pretty ridiculous, and it sounded like maybe Georgia Death Race also was just pretty ridiculous. So that seemed to be the going trend this weekend on the East Coast.
Yeah, so we did 3-hour, 6-hour, 12-hour races. So Brenda and Matt were the winners of the 12-hour. 6-hour, we had a young kid, actually 17 years old from New Hampshire, did 39 miles. So he was a big standout. He came out last year also. I think he ran 36 miles. So that was some I think faster performances here despite the mud conditions.
And this is your first one out of the gate for Conquer the World. I can't remember if you did one so far this season. Is this your kind of season opener?
First one, yeah. We kind of advertise this one as like I think most people do it as like a training race or something bigger for the rest of the year. Which we don't mind. It's it's a loop race. You have 3 miles, which is not short enough to kind of practice some nutrition, but long enough to like get moving out there.
Cool. And then for Brenda and Matt, as I'm trying to actively stalk as we're also talking as well. Matt, I got to you first in terms of just some of the results. So you've done some of the classics with Seven Sisters and Chesterfield Gorge. Seven Sisters just being a classic in Chesterfield, I've not run, but just know it to be a really just kind of beautiful course. And then Loon Mountain as well, in terms of just a classic Northeast mountain race. Have you done a lot more that's outside of like the Ultra Sign Up platform, or are you kind of keying on these kind of marquee events and it's like that one just looks really cool, I'm just going to go do that?
Yeah, it's funny because I just saw my Ultra Sign Up like for spring on the trails, and I didn't know what races would be on it versus what races aren't on it. And like I've probably done maybe I'd say less than 10 trail races total. Like most of them aren't on there. I did the Mount Tom 50K in East Hampton, Mass.
Nice.
And I'm trying to think what else. One called the Norbrook Farm Race in Connecticut, Colebrook, Connecticut, which is also a looped race. And other than that, mostly just like road stuff, road marathons
and so if we're not doing that many trail races so far, you definitely have a varied collection of finishes that you have done. I mean, from maybe even if you took the mud out of the equation, a pretty runnable like endurance run, such as Spring on the Trails, but then you get a really kind of technical, just really social, a lot of people with Seven Sisters. But again, this iconic Northeastern race, you get Loon, which again is just a different thing in and of itself with just a short mountain race. And then Chesterfield, which isn't necessarily like technical, but just like beautiful. I mean, you're getting some pretty varied experiences in just what you have done so far.
Yeah, I like to run kind of everything. I mean, I love like the tech vert stuff. I like the loop courses, and I like roads a lot too. So I like to stay well-rounded and kind of try everything. Loon kicked my ass though. That was just like a whole different, like the steepness of that upper walking boss and such was just a whole other realm. Like I don't even know if I want to revisit that kind of steepness.
And then you're coming to us from South Hadley.
South Hadley, Mass. Yeah, I live probably like 5 miles from Seven Sisters.
And do you hit it just on your own? I know that's one of I think Brian Rozecki's historical favorites in terms of just a great route.
But yeah, me and some friends ran into him like maybe a month and a half ago, like mid-February, running it shirtless.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I've run it solo. I'd run it solo maybe twice before the race, and run parts of it like a bunch of times. So
yeah. And then Brenda also coming in from, you're still in Mass?
I am. Yep. I'm in Worthington, Mass. Not too far from the Seven Sisters. It's actually one of my favorite races. I used to hike there all the time, and then saw people running up it, and I was just like blown away. Like, people run this, and then I've got the bug ever since. So, to answer your question ahead of time about one of my favorite races, the Seven Sisters is definitely like has my heart.
And I feel like you were first on my radar, maybe as the context of an FKT or two early on, and then catching some of your posts going into COVID. I like similar where maybe Matt has the background with some of the roads and then getting into trail more relatively recently. You also, I feel like we're kind of more feeling the bug getting into COVID. And that kind of plays out in Ultra Sign Up history, where in 2020, you kind of were, I think, first just entering the scene and then really just started getting after it in like 2021 and 2022.
If the dogs are any indication of my next answer, I've always spent my time in the woods running and hiking. I never really recorded anything that I did. It was until I met my husband and right before COVID hit, and he was getting more into trail races and doing like longer distances. And that's kind of when I got that bug to like, I didn't really race. I just ran for fun and for the joy of being in nature, because that's where I want to be. I'm actually in the the Berkshires, pretty much. That's where I live, like in the middle of nowhere. I just like surrounding myself with nature. And then discovered just I didn't know there was this whole world of competition out here, and the whole Northeast and across the country. I didn't even know ultra marathons were a thing until 2020. So I got the bug, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And that, I mean, yeah, so that's kind of like a mind blown moment in terms of, wow, like, I don't know, here's all these like destinations. And then you did get after it. Like the number of finishes. I mean, you were doing basically like 1 to 2 a month in 2021. And also kind of a myriad of events, not necessarily starting the most technical. I mean, a segue with JFK where you get some of the AT in there, but then also some non-technical, but then shifting to something like Catamount, where not, again, overly technical, and dabbling your toes. And you mentioned the mud year at Twisted Branch, where, all right, you had a little bit more, but then you jump to like the Barkley Fall Classic 50K, and like, it's like, let's just try something altogether different and kind of jump down there.
You've explained it pretty well. I like traveling and seeing, what's out there. That's why I do the FKTs and the races. Like I would never go to half of these places if it wasn't for a race. Usually, like it wouldn't be on my radar. So it's kind of exciting to discover new places. But also I like the challenge of, like, can I do Barkley? Can I do Eastern States? Can I do whatever it is? Just keep seeing where the limit is. And also I'm almost 40. So, I'm going to enjoy it while I can and keep competing.
And you are increasing, and it's almost like then spring on the trails. I mean, and Stephen, you can comment on this in terms of where you have it on the calendar and kind of where you feel like it fits as a good early season opener or whatever. But for you, Brenda, as we're on yours, I mean, you've been progressively getting more technical. So you had Barkley and then you went back to JFK, but then again, Seven Sisters. So technical. Manitou's Revenge, long and technical, just a beast of a course. Eastern States, building up into, and then just a classic or kind of iconic Black Canyon 100K in terms of just a really competitive field, just to see where you'd shake out in more of a national field. So for both of you, and Stephen, you can weigh in and, as well on kind of the intent or the place on the calendar. But so for Matt and Brenda, coming off of, I mean, this seemed to be somewhat of an outlier in format for both of you in terms of just like a timed, at least when I'm in my brief stalk here, in terms of just a timed event, not necessarily technical, again, outside of the mud. How'd it go in terms of how you compare it to some other efforts and maybe more like traditional non-timed formats? Or, I mean, it seems like it must be a whole different energy.
Well, for me, I've never done a looped course before, so I was really curious what that would be like. And it was kind of a way to test my body because, for me, like runnable hills, like I should be able to run them. And I wanted to see if I could just keep running them and just, I don't know if this makes sense, but like they're easy at first and then they get hard. And it was like, for me, it was like a good way to train for the longer races to see if I can keep being efficient, getting up those hills and like seeing if I can keep getting a little bit faster. Because I was more of a lackadaisical trail explorer, I didn't really like push myself. And I just wanted to see if I can just I just wanted to see what my threshold was, I guess. I did use it as a training run for just to keep the momentum going from Black Canyon too. So it was a nice break too from what we normally do out here in the East Coast, where it's just super technical and rocky, and like you get all those breaks in between from hiking. Like with how runnable it was, it just didn't feel right to always walk up those hills unless I was completely toast. So that happened eventually, but.
And do you feel like it then held up to what your expectations were for that format in terms of experience?
I actually didn't have any expectations. I don't know. Sometimes I just kind of show up. It felt like a lazier race for me too, because I didn't have to carry everything on my back, which like that's most of my adventures. Like I'm usually a solo runner in the middle of nowhere. So like I have everything I could possibly need for survival. So it's nice to not have to carry every single thing in my pack and just like have a check-in point every 3 miles, like whatever I needed for that loop or to start the next loop, like I can just get from my tent and then be out the door. So it was a nice surprise. And the course eventually, like, I don't know, like it became like, all right, like a check mark. Like, all right, I made it to this part. I made it to the bear with the glazing eyes. I made it past the muddy part or the hill. Like it just, I don't know. It just felt like got something done off my list. It was kind of nice. A nice change of pace.
And then how about for you, Matt, in terms of, again, being a relatively novel format, at least from the results that I'm looking at?
Well, I had done like that Norbrook farm race I'd mentioned earlier. It was pretty similar because it was like it was also a 3 mile loop, but it was 4 hours.
Okay.
And probably the same amount of like elevation for loop 2, and also did a backyard race in I think like October, and I did like 66 miles there, and those pretty much, very very similar, I guess, course to this one. So I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, and I think a big part of it was just like the routine of like getting into that groove. Like every time you finish a lap, stop at the aid station and fill up the bottle and like get the food you need and then go. And yeah, I mean, I think those previous 2 races for sure just kind of got me prepped for this pretty good. And yeah, it felt pretty comfortable.
And then Stephen, for you in terms of creating it and where you put it on the calendar and kind of intentions or inspirations, anything kind of, I guess, comment on that just for a minute.
Yeah. So we, I pretty strategic, we're calendars getting saturated here in the Northeast, like with big events going on. So I never want to step on anybody's toes. So I kind of looked at what's coming up in, May, June. May is Rock the Ridge, and Breakneck, and then you got Escarpment in June. So I was trying to put it a little bit earlier in the season to get people, practice their nutrition, hydration, something fun that really wasn't in the calendar, at least in this region. I know New Jersey, there's a few timed races early in the year as well, but I want to get one up in the Dutchess County area. So, and it's a private property, so the property is owned by one company, Red Wing Sand and Gravel. And there's one old guy, his name's Paul. He's about 80 years old. He takes care of the whole thing. So he lets us use the property. We maintain the trails, do trail work, and lets us put these fun races on. So this was our flatter race. Most of our races have a little more vert in it. This side of the property just has those 2 lakes, so different kind of highlights to them. So we wanted to kind of bring those out. And springtime was our least crowded for us too, so we just figured we'd try it out. The first year obviously was busy because we were the first event in the area that happened after COVID. So the first year we had like 140 signups. A lot of people from Connecticut came over. I think a lot of their races were still canceled. 2022, it kind of mellowed out to like the 85, 90 sign-up range. This year we had about 82 signups. But everyone seemed to have fun. I mean, the weather, this time of year, it's unpredictable. We had a big snowfall a couple of weeks ago. The area got about 18 inches, so I was a little worried it wasn't going to melt in time, but we got pretty lucky and just ended up being a little muddy.
Cool. It's nice that you've been able to cultivate that relationship. That's pretty awesome. Kind of your own private Idaho there.
I have to ask, you said that they maintain the trails. Are they going to fix all the post holes we did in there? Because we completely destroyed that place. Like,
yeah, so that'll be my job in the next couple of weeks to go out there with help him kind of fill in the holes, and he puts down more wood chips. And
nice.
Once it dries up a little bit,
that makes me feel better.
Yeah, like we were talking about it yesterday. There was like a hole like in what we dubbed the field of despair. And like it like went to my knee like multiple times pretty much. It was crazy. It was like a pit, a real pit. And like somehow stepping in it like 4 laps in a row. No matter what I tried,
that was your power animal, was just that mud hole right there.
Yeah. That and the bear and the owl.
Yeah.
Little guy and the horse.
So are there things you just put on course? Because Brenda, you mentioned that as well. What's the little dude on a horse? Because now I want to see the actual little dude on a little horse, like out on the course, especially when they're just getting fatigued in the later miles.
So there's one of his neighbors carves like these big things out of like wood. There's like a giant bear that's carved out of wood on the trail. There's a big owl. On a separate trail, there's actually a giant green alien that he put out there. The little guy on the horse, one of our runners put out. I think it's a gnome riding a unicorn with like a little gun.
Okay,
Dude, that
because I swear that one disappeared. Like, was I hallucinating? Did the runner take it when they left? Because I swear, like I was looking for it, and I was like, I no idea where it went. Like, how did I lose that? I tried to take a picture. Anyways,
should still be there.
Yeah, look.
And Angela just weighing in, haha, it's a gnome with a kitten riding a unicorn, and he's holding a flag. There is a lot going on right there.
That was close.
can you answer my question? Did they take it back with them, or was I hallucinating?
And why is that not the new kind of logo or mascot for the race going forward? I mean, that kind of one-ups the whole kind of Yeti entity in their designs.
Yeah, it's pretty fitting.
No answer, because I want to see that for next year. If you could make that the logo, I'd be really excited about that. I may actually buy maybe the one event that I'll buy the shirt, even if I don't do it.
It was really memorable. I like on looped courses when there's just like those little like landmarks. Like, oh, he's still there.
Thank you. Okay, I was hallucinating. Thank you for reminding me. I'm crazy.
I like when there's like those little landmarks that like aren't land. They're just like statues or like just these funny little things. Like backyard race I did. I remember it was kind of like an out and back, and like at the turnaround, there's this pink elephant balloon. And we'd like tap it like right before the turnaround, and it was like slowly deflating like as the race went on. And it was like this grand symbol. Like,
is that just
race, like,
right? Is that the symbolic meaning for you as I'm going on? And I'm just kind of deflating.
Yeah, we're all.
This is getting more depressing. Yeah. Huh. I would like it, Steven, if you could bring me that gnome to put on the break, or Angela, can you bring it to breakneck so I can maybe put it on? Well, now maybe you should keep it your thing, but. All right, I'm gonna have to get something.
You can grab it. We'll lend it out.
I think you should. I think you should own that though. All right, and then do you feel like it was good? Kind of good workout, Brenda. You have, I know, Cayuga Trails at least in your mix coming up, which is one of my events here in Ithaca, and it's a pretty runnable course. At least I think it's fully runnable, and so
I can give you some feedback. Hopefully.
Yeah,
some positive.
Compared to what now you have under your belt, because now your bar is set in different places than it would have been 2 years ago.
Yeah, so I have no idea what's going to happen. It's a surprise to me too.
It is going to be one big exciting surprise, but it's definitely not going to be the technical bar in any way, shape, or form that you have under your belt now. Not even as much as Twisted Branch. It'd be really different. So, but hopefully this gave you a pretty good. I mean, you're still a couple months out here, or 2 months out. So hopefully it was good to build up.
Yeah.
And Matt, how about for you? You've got you have one in Connecticut coming up, right? At 50K.
Yep, Trap Rock 50K. It's in Bloomfield, Connecticut.
Yep, and a classic there in terms of Trap Rock. Get a couple good climbs in it, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, I think it's maybe like 6,800 feet. I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like New England Trail, Metacama Trail, whatever it is, but yeah.
And a good scene. It seems a really great community out there. So hopefully it's just a fun day.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Cool. And then Steven, you have what does Conquer the World have on deck?
Yeah, we have 2 coming up in end of May and June. So we have the Mining for Vert Challenge is down at Harriman State Park. So it's 2-hour, 4-hour on a 0.8 mile ski loop, and each loop's about 300 feet of gain. And then this year we finally got like a course worked out with this state park to have a 7-mile trail run. It's just to add to the day. That one's a fun one. We usually get, again, a lot of people training for kind of like vert heavy races. They just come out and, they don't want to go out and do hill repeats on their own. So they'll just come out for 2 hours, 4 hours and do a nice loop. Last year was about 98 degrees. So hopefully it's not as hot. And then June 4th, it's our first year doing the Pacheco Mountain Race. So kind of inspired by you, Ian, with the Whiteface race. I reached out to a few mountains in the Catskills. No one really got back to me. Pacheco Ski Mountain, reached back out, and we're ended up putting on a race there. It's going to be we haven't got a chance to obviously go measure the course because they've got a lot of snow still in the Catskills. But it'll be 6-7 miles, like about 3,500 feet of gain.
Oh wow, that's
up
awesome.
and around the ski mountain. So we're excited. That's June 4th.
Cool. That's great. Yeah, I think that's good timing, and that's a good amount of vert for that loop, and to just be a loop course versus the time. Yeah, hopefully that takes. Right on. And then aside from the events that I mentioned in Trap Back and Cayuga, anything for you all? And they were some events for you that's putting on, Stephen. I know you're participating some too for the three of you. Any other adventures that you're kind of pretty stoked about for the year ahead?
I'm doing something called the Free Spirit 50K in Leyden, Mass, which I think it's like right near the Vermont border. It's mostly like dirt roads. It's got a decent amount of vert. It's probably like 4,000 feet, I want to say, on roads. I think it's the first year they're doing it as well. I'm pretty excited for that. I'm also doing the Mount Washington road race in June.
Oh, right on. Will it be your first Mount Washington?
Yep.
Oh, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, I tried to get in last year and didn't get in the lottery, so pretty psyched to have gotten in this year.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that sounds like torture.
Yeah, I love paved hills. Like I like running everything, but like paved hills are just something about them. They're such suffering, but like really fun, and that's kind of the ultimate paved hill. I think. So
nice.
Pretty psyched.
Huh. Cool. That's awesome. And then Brenda, outside of Cayuga, anything adventures you're pretty stoked about for the year?
Cayuga, I am going to run Seven Sisters in May, and then what was it? So I have a couple of adventures on my own. So like I'm going to do the Hut to Hut with a group of friends, and I'm going to hopefully run
New Hampshire Hut to Hut, or
yes, yep,
yeah, cool.
White Mountains, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm hoping to so like I kept my race calendar kind of more open just because I want to get back to my roots a little bit more, like just doing adventures. So I'm hopefully going to do either, I haven't decided if I want to do all of the NET in Connecticut or all of the NET in Massachusetts, but I've been piecing together all of that right now, and I've done the entirety of Massachusetts already. So that's something I have on my agenda. I'm also going to do the Mid-State Massive 100. That is in October. It goes from the New Hampshire border to like the Massachusetts Connecticut border. So,
and that one's pretty mild, and then just kind of climbs.
Yeah,
at the end.
it is. I have some from revenge I need to seek on that one because I fell apart with like 20 miles to go, and that was like the easiest section. So I just have to avenge myself and then move on from that one. But it's beautiful though because it's the peak foliage in New England, so it's it's a spectacle for the eyes.
Cool.
For the spirit. I think I had one more race. Oh, then I have Wakely Dam, the 50K in July.
Oh, classic. Have you done Wakely before?
I have not. Most of the races that I do, I've never done before, other than the ones
that's great
to seek revenge. But yeah,
good for you. Good.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna throw in some races last minute too, if other things don't pan out. So
yeah. Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
And Stephen, how about for you in terms of participatory?
Yeah, so I'm running the Breaking Half. Will be the first one coming up, and then June I'm going out to do a Leadville Marathon and hike some 14ers, and then August will be my second Leadville 100 attempt.
Oh, that's right. I did see you. And that was And how did it unravel for the first attempt?
Pretty early. It was like mile 26. It's like a mental breakdown, I guess, the simplest way to put it. So I'm a little more tougher now, I think, and then hopefully the June trip, we're going out for like 8 days to do the race, and then probably hike at least 5 14ers while we're out there just to get a nice training block in.
And do you feel it was you conquered those demons going in? I mean, you mentioned where you're like tougher now, but is it tougher, or was it just kind of really overwhelming and just what to expect out of yourself from that first go out there in such a huge event?
It's pretty overwhelming. I tried to get in the lottery for like 5 years. So then I finally just got in through like the foundation. And I think just finally being at a race that I put on this huge pedestal was like pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then also my training that year was very vert heavy and not too much running. And then, Leadville is pretty much a lot of running. So trying to find a balance this year.
Yeah, that's really the spring on the trails is probably better training for Leadville than some of the others.
Yeah.
Aside from the obviously the altitude. Yeah. Right on. Well, that's exciting. I hope you get out there, and I hope you're just able to experience that event in just a different place in your life and a different kind of, I don't know, hopefully security and comfort with kind of who you are out there, and it ends up being a pretty cool experience. I know a lot of people really love their Leadville experiences, so hopefully it's good.
Thank you.
Or you can just shift to the Burro race out there instead. Because all bets off. Yeah.
It sounds like my dream right there, the Burro race.
There it is. Sign yourself up. I think you can get out there. I think people will lend you a burro if needed. Yeah, you should probably get on that. Yeah. Right on. Well, great job to all of you on the event this weekend. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your evenings tonight to check in. And Brenda, I'll see you at Cayuga. Steve, I'll see you at Breakneck. And Matt, hopefully I see you with a pretty fun or good result at Trap Rock coming up.
Yeah, cool.
And then Mount Washington too. I'll be excited to see or just hear how it goes for you with that paved pain cave.
Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to it.
Right on. All right. Well, I will port you guys back off, and I will touch base on the next round.
All right.
Right.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks
again.
all.
Thanks.
See
Yeah.
you all.
All too. Bye.
All right. So for all those who tuned in live, I really appreciate you tuning in. For those that dropped comments that engaged, it for sure makes it more fun. So I really appreciate it. For those that are still leaving comments, also appreciate it. You can try to weigh in. I'm not sure why some of sometimes the comments or questions come in after the stream is ending in the moment. I think there's a delay with one of the platforms, and I don't know why. So Richard, thanks for plugging in terms of with Dean and taking him down. So thanks for dropping in that comment. But thank you for all those who tune into and support the Trails Collective, for just being a part of the Eastern trail running community and world, for sharing your stories, for sharing your time. I really appreciate it. So I'm not sure what's on deck for next week for Trails Collective Live, but I will post it up when I have it. And until then, see ya.